Bonjour. So this week, what one of the quietest weeks, for a long while, I've got to say. Nevertheless, there was still six of the best, plus a couple of cheats like I normally do, and I've also got a couple of. I normally do also rans, but I've got a couple here that I've got to say were big disappointments by the same writer. We're going to go. We're just going to have a little look at them because this is my favourite place. And I like talking about the good stuff. So I'm only going to briefly touch on it, just more as a little warning, really. And it is surprising because they're two titles that I pick up regularly, and if I wasn't such a collector, I would be very well. I'm disappointed, but anyway, you know what I'm getting at. Before I get into it, thanks again to everyone that's starting to leave a little comment, however small it is. Really appreciate it. Even if it's a thumbs up emoji, love you for that. Also, loving you mental 18,500 that have actually subscribed. Thank you ever so much. I really do appreciate it. And a little like as well. You know, the whole kit and caboodle. Thank you. It really helps. At the level I'm at, this low level, you know, us little fish in the big pond, we really do need the algorithm. We need you to help us get us up that algorithm and get us to hopefully a bit of a wider audience. Let's get right into it. My first cheat of the week is this from last week. Now, I couldn't do it last week because I had a damaged, all the pages were loose inside. That is one cracking read. And the art, everything was spot on for that, for me. Back to this week. This is still, for me, my favourite of the Star Wars titles. They're really doing some imaginative new material with a character you know, on first glance you think, oh, what are they going to do with Darth Vader? But they have found some interesting avenues to go down. For one of the most famous movie villains of all time. This was a great, unexpected, but a great little horror title. Off to a good start. Issue 1 of that, and after 22 years, yeah, Battlechasers issue 10. Didn't think I'd live long enough to see it. Joe Madureira on the writing duties. Sadly, not the art chores, but the guy that they've got is good. He's a good Ludo Lullaby. Why can't they just be John Smith anymore? Yeah, a word. Not up to Mads, but he could be, but a good style to follow Madureira's. So, and that's good. Look who's back, Robert Kirkman with a sci-fi tale. Really enjoyed this one. I think you all know by now that I am partial to the science fiction stuff, and Image doing Forged off the top of my head, but you all know that by now. That's a great issue 1. Thoroughly recommend that. Just lost the top comic of the week award to this, and I never would have thought in 1,000 years. I have been a lifelong Marvel collector. So I am not right up to speed with all the modern day antics of the Green Lantern. I think the only Green Lantern stuff I've got, like I might have mentioned before, is in the graphic novel format, like the Green Lantern, Green Arrow by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, that kind of stuff. I'll get the odd graphic novel if it's a big storyline, but not even, you know, these DC, apart from Batman, for me, DC and a couple of Superman stuff, that's it for me. But that's my book of the week. You know, and this week by a long way, to be fair, because I tell you what, over at Marvel we had this, and it might be a filler issue, but I tell you what, there should be a parental advisory warning on this filler issue. It was absolute garbage. Jed MacKay, absolute garbage. And I've been really I've enjoyed the first 3 issues of this, and you know I have, because I think I've reviewed 2 out of the 3 issues, I think, because I've really been enjoying this absolute. And this wand with Wong and the other woman in it, I don't know where that's come from, but they are pushing that. And do you know what? It sucks. It sucks. Those 2 characters suck. And it doesn't work. Not for me. And I don't know. It just doesn't. There's something about it. And they're shoehorning them in. There's Doctor Strange on the cover. He appears in the last page. Now, I don't mind it if you've got a strong intro to the further story to come. That was crap. Jed MacKay as well on this one. And I've just started picking this book up and been enjoying it. And again, no good. And what surprised me is they're both Jed MacKay. Now, I'm not down on the writer per se, but I don't know if he was having an off moment with these 2. But I know I don't often do that. It was only because it was coincidental that they were both Jed MacKay. So I don't know what he was on the week he wrote them 2. But it wasn't anything good. And just before I go, I'm not going to do a complete deep dive in this, but I've only read, look, you can see where the bookmark is. But I have been steaming through this. Night Fever, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I love their stuff since Sleeper and onwards, and before, obviously. Big fan of Ed Brubaker. That is just going to show you a little bit of that. I think it's going to be a stonking read. But obviously I'll only show a little bit, and I think it's one of them that's going to have the twists and turns anyway, so I'm probably better off just showing you as far as I've gotten to get your juices flowing. And if you like the look of that lot, join me after the scroll for a deep dive, looking at the artwork, going through some of the storylines. Let's get into it. So, first one up, last week's Daredevil. So, apologies if you're thinking this is too late, but you know, if you only get into a comic book shop once a month, then this will be well worth picking up. Now, it's part 12 of the Red Fist saga. Now, I don't know, this artwork is absolutely spot on. This is what I call, you know, real graphic storytelling, and it's a fitting end to this 12-parter, this Red Fist saga. It really is. I think Checchetto has overdone himself with his style that he's used here with the colouring, and look at the dapple effect he's used. This was absolutely, you know, it's got that Japanese, you know, he's going for that Japanese kind of, you know, spring or autumn. And the best bit, now, what is basically, I don't know, do you know what? I'm going to stop myself there by saying what he wants to do, because if you've been following this all the way through, this fight with Elektra, look how beautiful that panel is. And I know I'm staying vague, but you can see how glorious the artwork is in this book. You know, look at that. It was all in silhouette with a, what do you call it? The, not pollen. The, anyway, my brain must be freezing. And again, back in time, their fights through history with all these different outfits. What a lovely touch! What a lovely touch to go through all that. And I really kind of want to show the last few pages, but I can't. I really don't want to spoil it for people. But basically, you know, this fight with Elektra, this is all classic stuff. This is how you do Daredevil. This is how you do Daredevil. It's got to be, this has got to be Marvel's top book, I think. This beats the Spider-Man stuff. Yeah, it beats Avengers Beyond, I think, is one of the other top books. But I'm going to stop it right there, because how this ends, leaves it on such a delicious cliffhanger for, or not a cliffhanger, for such a delicious way of ending it. Yeah, not strictly a cliffhanger, but you will want to see the first part of the next story arc. I can guarantee that if you've been enjoying that. Now, and if you haven't been getting Daredevil, that will be a good couple of graphic novels or one complete volume. Like I said in the intro, this is the best. Even though it's got Dr. Aphra in it, and I'm not the biggest fan of that character, this book is giving you, like I've said before about these Star Wars titles, this book is giving you everything it says on the tin. I'm telling you. And this worked well, this partnership between these two. When Vader arrives, and obviously she's double-crossed him. Obviously, I don't get Doc Aphra, so I didn't, you kind of, but if it does a real good job of summarising, what she's done and the trouble she's in. And, they just don't have him monologuing. They just have him there and the people reacting around him. And the best bit about this storyline is that he isn't under full control of the Force. The whole story revolves around this artifact being discovered, and it's affecting everyone's. It's affecting his powers the most, the Force, and the story has ensued from there. I think this might be part 3, maybe 2 or 3 of this storyline, maybe part 3. And yeah, these two characters are a perfect foil against the power of, or the power that he can't use, really. And these artifacts are what she's finding. She's an archaeologist kind of a thing, character. Yeah, it just nicely done. Good art. I don't know who's on the duties, on the art duties for this one. Raffaele Ienco, Greg Pak writing it as always, but doing a great job. So yeah, really enjoyed that. Thoroughly recommend. So on to the indies. I love the indies. This one just wasn't on my radar at all. Had to pick it up for this cover, I've got to say. And it's a ghost story. They're doing enough here, set in the future after we've mucked the planet up. And this first issue is just your intro. I think this is a nice art job. Unusual style. It's kind of like a looser style, but it really does suit the storyline. It's a character-driven piece at the moment. It's setting the scene. Obviously, the world, it looks like the rich are going to be the ones that are better off, but we all know that. And the main character is assembling a team to go and investigate this island, Isla Lodo, which is apparently haunted. And that is it in a nutshell. That is your story premise. And these are just the characters. So there's not a great deal for me to show you other than, something goes wrong just before they get to the island. So it's not the best of landings. And I'll leave it there because obviously, you've got some ominous happenings. But I won't reveal the last couple of pages. Haunt you to the end. Issue 1, recommend that. Thoroughly recommend that. And sometimes the art style in those, like I say, does lend itself to the storyline because, unlike comics like this, you don't need a highly stylized artist. And the story so far, from 20 odd years ago. So here we go. From 20 years ago to issue 10. The story picks up literally where it left off. And I think this is a nice style by the Ludo Lulabi. Obviously, no Joe Madureira, who is on the writing duties, and it is a decent storyline. Gets us right back into it, I've got to say, and it does roll along at a good pace. Decent fantasy story, and those Battlechasers bits that made it unique when it first come out. Mixing at the time, it sounds a bit has been now, but mixing a bit of tech with magic, and without making it steampunk. Was what Battlechasers did really almost before steampunk was a word. I mean, obviously, I haven't done no research into that, but yeah, I mean, things like this are pure steampunk. But I don't know if it was ever promoted as steampunk Battlechasers or whether it just fell into that gap. But this is good artwork. It's nice. This was a satisfying read after 20 years. Obviously, the weight of expectation is upon it, but after all that time, nothing's going to live up to any kind of hype. And I've noticed that they haven't really hyped this to death. I think they've obviously done, you've got to do your promotion, but they haven't hyped it to death. And I like the way they're continuing it. Lovely colouring job as well. Muted, I've got to say, it's not as glary as Battlechasers. But then again, if you haven't got Madureira's artwork to work with, maybe that's the reason why. But nice splash page. This is what we want, really, isn't it? From a Battlechasers book. So let's hope they can keep. I don't know if that'll cover B, the Joe Mad cover. Letting us see what it would have been like if Joe Madureira, his cover as well, was on the writing and art. What a shame, but it would be another 20 years before we saw issue 11 at the rate he works. This was interesting. Void Rivals, issue 1, Robert Kirkman of The Walking Dead fame. And this is a sci-fi story. It's a quick, easy pitch. A human crash lands on this planet, and I don't think it's the Earth, I just think it's humanity's, in the far-flung future. They've left it nice and loose, which I really enjoyed. A human and the enemy. Void Rivals. But like in the film Enemy Mine from years ago, they have to work together if either of them want to survive. If they both want to survive, they have got to work together. And it was quite a light way of handling it, which I really enjoyed. It wasn't heavy. Enemy Mine obviously was quite heavy, and it has obviously taken inspiration from that. But there were some nice light touches. You can see how far Robert Kirkman has come over the years with his writing technique. There was such a delicate touch with the characterisations. Bearing in mind they're helmeted for most of the story, and it's only these two. Oh, and his kind of tech thing that's an extra character, for want of a better description. Yeah, and I'll leave it there because otherwise I'll be revealing too much of the story. Because it kind of really picks up the pace right up to the last page. Very, very nicely paced. A really good page turner. Really, it's lean, economical, and really gets on with it. My only complaint, and I'm going to use this one, look, they could have given us the pitch on this back cover. I had to ask my old mate Paul, Comics and Fantasy, comic shop in Hornchurch in Essex. I had to ask him. I said, because I must have missed this in previews. And I said to him, I bore him as well as you lot with the fact that instead of just wasting this by doing Void, the logo, which is very nice, put that up there and give us the pitch, give us the blurb. But, I picked it up basically on Robert Kirkman, so perhaps they think he doesn't need a blurb. On to the book of the week. And I'm going to say it one more time. DC and these Dawn of the DC books are, for me, maybe because I'm not a long-term DC fan. It might be that. Maybe long-term DC fans are finding this boring, same old thing. I'm loving it. I haven't picked up a regular Green Lantern book ever. in my life. Like I said, I've picked up the odd mini series, or there might be a one shot with a good art, with an artist I'm a fan of. Other than that, and I've got to say, I am right on board with how they've introduced this character, and what a fun read this is, by Jeremy Adams, and is another good name. The artist is Zermanico, and there's no way on this God's given earth that I've pronounced that rightly, so I do apologise. But look at that for artwork and colouring. DC are knocking it out of the park with these books. They are really putting the effort in, and it hurts me to say it, but they're putting the main Marvel character books to shame. This Dawn of DC stuff. I hope it continues, but that's obviously going to be the big question mark, isn't it? Whether they can continue with this trajectory, these Dawn of DC books, but I really do hope so. I really do, because I'm thoroughly enjoying the ones I'm picking up. Just great! What a great shot! And again, it's just great storytelling. Here we go. Bump, bump, here we go. Without the pan again, without the, that adds to what we're looking at. And again, lovely colouring, and it's just fun superhero stuff. There is nothing wrong with that at all. And DC, I think, are just proudly going right in on it. Just the traditional superhero stuff, character-driven stuff. His ex-girlfriend with a new boyfriend. To give the story heart. You can't be, wall-to-wall Green Lantern. Where's it going to go at the end of issue 2? Like I say, a fun read. Top marks. That's why it's my book of the week. Really is, and it leaves. These are all the shenanigans for the backstory to come. And this is your leading to issue 3. Love it, and it's picking up. The story's picking up. Also great is the backup story. I'm just enjoying that as well. It's only 6 or 8 pages. I've never read any comic books with I forget his name. Whatever that graphic, that Green Lantern's name is Stuart. Oh, I don't know. John Stewart, is it? Oh, I don't know. Sorry. See, that's how much I know about Green Lantern after collecting all these years. Because he's one of the new characters that I would have never ever just haven't read no Green Lantern, but I am now, and it's beautiful artwork by Montos. Beautiful, really that's two. This is the backup story. Philip Kennedy Johnson is weaving just what I would say, without having read any of the old Green Lantern stuff, the classic Green Lantern stuff. He's getting all the saying in there, I know that much. Loved it, and that is why that issue 2, Green Lantern, Dawn of DC. That's my book of the week. They're really, Marvel could take a lesson out of their, or leaf out of their book. No pun intended. Now this one, a completely original graphic novel. This is not collecting any issues, Night Fever. I'm just going to show a little sneaky peek because I really did enjoy this, and what an intriguing plot. And just a lovely art style from Sean Phillips. He's really developed over the years. Almost like David Lloyd, who did V for Vendetta back in the day, in his style, which is not to use, he kind of just uses blacks and whites. I know this is obviously coloured in, but there is a lack. I love the fact that there are no panel lines, and they're just using the colour to delineate the panels. Kaya does that, and there's something about that immediately expands the page. It seems to open the page out by not framing each panel. And I really did steam through the first quarter of this book, and it's about this is our main character, and there's something going on. He's a book editor, and he's going to this book fair, and it's all very humdrum. His existence. He meets some old friends, and they're saying, "Look, you should be happy," and he's not. He's clearly not. Can't sleep. There's something really bugging him. This he's read a book on the flight over, and this dream sequence here has got under his skin because he has had almost the exact same dream, and he's thinking like, "Am I going mad or what?" They've got the death of his father here when he was a kid, so we don't know whether that's going to resonate later on. End of what I assume is the first chapter, and then it goes dark. So he's wandering around at night because he still can't sleep, and these two characters make him wander into down the stairs. Here we go into the cabin. The red lights, the red colouring tells us everything, doesn't it? And he's into a world. He looks down on this list and spots a name and says, "Yeah, that's me." And the intrigue comes from there. And I won't go on any more than that. I just wanted to show you a bit more. At least this book does have a blurb because it's a proper book by a proper publisher. So that how hard is it to do that? They've got a quote from someone, and they've got what the story's about. And this was sealed plastic. It was heat sealed, so I didn't get to take a look inside. This is what sold me the book, and obviously, Paul hasn't read it yet at the comic book shop, but yeah. So thoroughly recommend that. So we're on to cover of the week, and there's not a lot. There isn't a lot to go through really. The green, green. I know that was comic of the week, but I'm not sure if that's a decent cover to sell a comic. The Battlechasers one again. I wouldn't say that's exactly action packed. I mean, it's Joe Mad's artwork, and the artwork's nice. Yes. I mean, Vader with a lightsaber is always going to sell a book. And that one, this one. And that's the four choices really I've got for this week to decide upon. It's quite an easy choice because it's that caught my eye straight away, and that cover says you are buying a horror. I like the VHS bit. I like all the they've done the cracking on an old VHS. What's it? And that's just a blurry image, and that says to me, that says it all. And although this issue 1 is just an intro to the story, it's a good one. And it makes me want to get issue 2. That'll be a great, like I say about a lot of this stuff, it'll make a great graphic novel. If you're not holding on for the individual issues like the mad collectors like me. So, well, that is it for this week. Quite a short one, not a lot to really rave about apart from Green Lantern, I've got to say. Although these books are good, that is good, so is Battlechasers, all my recommendations are that. But so until next week, let's hope it's a bigger bumper crop that I'll get excited about. I will bid you all adios.